As the room grows quiet, there is one simple movement your body expects to keep doing without your attention. Breath comes in, breath goes out, again and again. Softly enough that you do not have to think about it, steadily enough that the rest of the body can trust it. Most nights, this is part of the hidden mercy of sleep. You lie down, the muscles loosen, the mind begins to drift away from the day, and beneath all of that, the lungs keep receiving air, the heart keeps sending oxygen forward, and the brain does not need to pull you back to the surface. But for many people, the night is not quite that smooth. From the outside, it may look like sleep. The room is dark, the body is still, the eyes are closed. Hours may pass on the clock, and yet, inside the night, something keeps breaking the rhythm. The airway narrows, airflow fades. The body tries to breathe through a passage that is no longer open enough. Oxygen may begin to dip. Pressure may begin to rise. The sleeping brain, which has been made to protect breath, notices. And before the conscious mind fully understands anything, the brain sends a rescue signal. A small arousal, a tightening, a gasp perhaps, a shift, and breath returns. Then sleep begins again, until the passage narrows again, and the body has to rescue the breath again. This is one of the quiet mysteries of sleep apnea. It is not always remembered as waking. It is not always experienced as panic. Sometimes a person does not recall a single event. They may only wake in the morning with a dry mouth, a heavy head, a foggy mind, or the strange feeling that they spent enough time in bed but never quite arrived in rest. And that is where tonight's journey begins. Not with fear, not with blame, not with the idea that snoring is a character flaw or that needing a breathing machine is a failure, but with respect for the body. Because sleep apnea is, in one sense, a story about the body fighting for something simple and sacred. Air. The body wants the night to be easy. It wants the breath to pass quietly through the throat, down through the airway, into the lungs, into the blood, and then onward into every tissue that needs it. But in obstructive sleep apnea, the upper airway becomes repeatedly blocked or narrowed during sleep. The word obstructive matters. It means the brain is still trying to breathe. The chest and breathing muscles may still be making effort, but the passage is not staying open the way it should. This is different from central sleep apnea, where the problem begins more with the brain's breathing signal. Tonight, we will stay mostly with obstructive sleep apnea, because it is the most common pattern, and because it explains so much of what people mean when they say breathing breaks the night. And because this is a medical condition, one clear note belongs near the beginning. This kind of pattern is not something a person should diagnose from a comment, a video, a partner's guess, or a wearable device alone. Those things can raise a question. They can give someone a reason to pay attention. But suspected sleep apnea deserves a conversation with a healthcare provider and, when appropriate, objective sleep testing. That does not make the subject frightening. It makes it measurable, and sometimes what can be measured can finally be understood. If you have spent a night with the story of deep sleep as the body's repair window, this episode is a quiet companion to that idea. Because tonight, we are not asking only what deep sleep does when it arrives. We are asking what happens when the body is pulled out of that depth again and again, not by noise in the room, but by the need to breathe. Imagine the sleeping airway as a soft passage, not a rigid pipe, not a fixed tube, more like a living corridor shaped by muscle tone, tissue, posture, jaw position, tongue position, and the natural relaxation that comes when sleep settles over the body. During the day when you are awake, the muscles of the throat help hold that passage open. You swallow, you speak, you shift, You breathe against gravity and posture and tension, and the body makes thousands of tiny adjustments without requiring your permission. But sleep changes the rules. As the nervous system moves into sleep, muscles relax. This relaxation is part of the gift of the night. It keeps the body from acting out every dream. It softens the face. It quiets the limbs. It lets the body stop holding itself against the world. But in a vulnerable airway, that relaxation can allow the soft tissues of the throat, the tongue, or nearby structures to drift backward or inward enough to narrow the breathing passage. At first, the change may be partial. Air still moves, but not smoothly. The airflow becomes turbulent. The tissues vibrate. That vibration is snoring. And snoring can be harmless in some people. Not every snore is sleep apnea. Not every noisy night means the airway is dangerously closing. But in obstructive sleep apnea, the narrowing can go further. The airway may become so small that breathing is reduced, or it may close enough that airflow pauses. The body does not simply accept this. It tries. The chest may keep working. The diaphragm may keep pulling. The sleeping body may make stronger effort against a narrowing passage, as if drawing air through a doorway that keeps swinging shut. And this effort changes the inner weather of the night. Inside the chest, pressure shifts. In the blood, oxygen may dip. Carbon dioxide may rise. The heart and vessels receive signals that something is not as quiet as it should be. And the brain, even in sleep, is watching over the basics. Not watching in words, not watching with thought, but with the deep, built-in systems that guard breathing, oxygen, and life. When the signal becomes strong enough, the brain triggers an arousal. This does not always mean sitting up awake. It may last only seconds. It may be so brief that the person has no memory of it at all. But it is enough to restore muscle tone. The airway opens. Air rushes in. The body may snort, gasp, shift, swallow, or simply resume breathing in a way no one notices. And then, almost immediately, sleep reaches for the person again. This is the strange mercy of the system. The arousal protects the breath, but it also fractures the sleep. The brain chooses air because it must, and the cost of that choice is continuity. One event may not matter much. Bodies move in sleep. Breathing changes, brief arousals can happen in ordinary nights. Sleep is not a motionless coma. It is dynamic, responsive, alive. But sleep apnea is different because the cycle repeats again and again. Airway narrows, effort rises. Oxygen may dip, the brain rescues, breathing returns, sleep resumes. Then the same passage becomes vulnerable again. Over a full night, the pattern can become less like one interruption and more like a sea that never settles. The person may believe they were asleep the whole time, because in a way, they were. But the deeper architecture of sleep may have been interrupted again and again by the body's need to reopen the airway. This is why sleep apnea can feel so confusing. A person may say, "I was in bed for 8 hours, or 9, or more, and still wake unrested." The clock measured time in bed. It did not measure how many times the body had to climb back toward wakefulness to breathe. It did not measure how often the heart and blood vessels were nudged out of quiet. It did not measure how many times the brain had to interrupt the descent. This is also why sleep apnea can hide in plain sight. Some people wake up choking or gasping and know something happened. Some are told by a spouse, partner, family member, or even someone in the next room that their breathing stopped, or that their snoring became frighteningly uneven. But others sleep alone. Others simply adapt to fatigue. Others assume that morning headaches are normal, or that dry mouth is just part of aging, or that needing to urinate several times a night is only a bladder issue, or that brain fog is simply stress. And of course, many of those symptoms can come from other causes. That is why the question belongs in daylight, with someone trained to evaluate it. Still, the pattern is worth understanding, because once you see sleep apnea clearly, it stops being only a noise problem. It becomes a continuity problem, a breathing problem, a pressure problem, a nervous system problem, a repair window problem. The night is supposed to allow the body to move through stages of sleep in long, graceful arcs. Light sleep, deeper sleep, REM sleep, slow waves, dreaming, quiet repair, emotional processing, hormonal rhythm, memory sorting, immune signaling, metabolic recalibration. But repeated breathing events can keep tapping the nervous system on the shoulder. Not loudly enough to create a memory, but strongly enough to change the night. Think of a person floating down into deep water. Each time the body begins to sink into stillness, a signal pulls them upward, not all the way to the surface. Not enough to open the eyes and say, "I am awake." Just enough to disturb the descent, again and again. That is why sleep apnea is sometimes described through numbers. How many breathing events happen per hour? Clinicians use those numbers, along with symptoms and context, to understand severity and choose next steps. But for tonight, the number is not the heart of the story. The heart of the story is the repeated rescue. The body keeps rescuing breath, and the sleep keeps paying the price. When oxygen dips during an obstructive event, the body notices in ways that are older and deeper than conscious thought. Blood oxygen is not just a number on a screen. It is the way every cell receives what it needs for the work of being alive. So when breathing is disrupted during sleep, the brain and body respond. The sympathetic nervous system can become more active. This is the branch of the nervous system that helps mobilize the body. It raises alertness. It helps increase heart rate and blood pressure when needed. It is useful when the body must respond. But sleep is supposed to be a time when that system can soften, not vanish, not shut off completely, but quiet down enough for the deeper restorative systems to have room. In untreated obstructive sleep apnea, repeated breathing stress can keep nudging the body toward a more activated state during the very hours when it should be settling. The heart may be asked to respond to pressure shifts. Blood vessels may receive repeated signals. The chemistry of stress and recovery may become less smooth. This is one reason sleep apnea has been associated with high blood pressure, cardiovascular strain, stroke risk, and metabolic disruption. Those words are serious, and we should let them be serious without making them frightening. An association is not a prophecy. A risk factor is not a sentence. And one person's symptoms cannot be interpreted through a screen at night. But the pattern matters because breathing is not optional biology. When sleep is repeatedly interrupted by airway collapse, the consequences can reach beyond feeling tired. They can touch attention, reaction time, mood, blood pressure, morning clarity, and the quiet confidence that sleep is actually doing what sleep was made to do. This is why a person with sleep apnea may wake with the feeling that the night was strangely unconvincing. The bed was there, the hours were there, the body was horizontal, but restoration did not fully arrive. Sometimes the first clue is not nighttime at all. It is morning, a headache that fades later, a mouth that feels dry, a heavy pressure behind the eyes. A fog that makes simple tasks feel like they require more effort than they should, or a sense of sleepiness that returns too quickly, even after what looked like a full night. Sometimes the clue is afternoon, nodding off in a chair, fighting sleep while reading, losing focus in a meeting, feeling irritable without knowing why. Sometimes the clue is the bed partner's memory. You stopped breathing, you gasped, you snored, and then it went silent. Then you started again. Those reports matter not because they diagnose the condition, but because they reveal what the sleeper often cannot witness. Sleep apnea is unusual in that the person most affected may be the person least able to observe it. You cannot watch your own throat during sleep. You cannot remember every arousal. You cannot feel every oxygen dip. You may only know the aftermath. The body keeps the receipt, even when the mind does not remember the event. There is another layer too. The airway does not exist alone. It is part of a whole sleeping body. When the airway narrows, the chest may keep trying to breathe. The diaphragm may pull downward. The rib cage may make effort. The body may be doing the work of inhaling, but the passage above is not letting air move freely enough. This creates a strange mismatch. Effort without enough airflow. Work without enough result. The sleeper is not choosing this. The sleeper is not aware of the mechanics. But inside the body, the system is responding to a problem that becomes more intense with each passing second of obstruction. The chest pulls. Pressure changes. Airflow remains reduced. Oxygen may begin to fall. Carbon dioxide may begin to rise. And the longer the event lasts, the louder the body's internal signal becomes. Not loud in sound, loud in biology. The brainstem and other breathing control systems are watching the chemistry of the blood and the effort of breathing. They do not need the thinking mind to be awake. They do not need a person to form a sentence. They are built to notice when breath is not moving the way it should. Then comes the arousal. It may be tiny, it may be invisible to memory, but it changes the state of the sleeper enough to reopen the passage. Muscle tone rises. The throat becomes less collapsed. The breath moves. Sometimes the return of air is quiet. Sometimes it is a snort. Sometimes it is a gasp. Sometimes it is a sudden shift in position. And then, because the body wants sleep, the person drifts back down. This is elegant in the moment. The body solves the immediate problem. But if the immediate problem keeps returning, the solution itself becomes part of the burden. The rescue is necessary. The repetition is costly. This is one of the best ways to understand the seriousness without making the subject frightening. Sleep apnea is not frightening because one breath is imperfect. Sleep apnea matters because the night may be filled with repeated protective interruptions. And the body was not meant to spend its restoration hours in a pattern of repeated alarm and recovery. It was made for rhythm, for breath, for depth, for long stretches where the systems of the body can trust each other. The lungs trust the airway. The heart trusts the lungs. The brain trusts the oxygen signal. The nervous system trusts the quiet. But when the airway keeps closing, trust is interrupted. And the body begins to sleep with one hand near the alarm bell. This is why people can be surprised by their own sleep study results. They may think, I do not wake up that often. They may think, I would know if I stopped breathing. They may think, I slept through the night. And yet, the recording can show repeated events the conscious mind never stored as memory. Sleep is not the same as awareness. The body can be disturbed without the self-remembering disturbance. The brain can be pulled upward without the person thinking, I am awake. The heart can respond without the mind hearing the response. That is why the morning can feel so confusing. The evidence is not in memory. It is in the body. It is in the heaviness. It is in the fog. It is in the daytime sleepiness that seems out of proportion to the hours in bed. It is in the way a person may feel older in the morning than they felt the night before. And for some people, it is in the numbers that begin to concern a doctor. Blood pressure that resists improvement, heart rhythm concerns, metabolic strain, or other patterns that make a clinician ask what is happening during sleep. Again, none of this means every tired morning is sleep apnea. It does not mean every snore is dangerous. It does not mean a person should lie awake scanning every breath. The goal is the opposite: to understand enough that the question can be handled in the right place. Not in fear at midnight, not through self-diagnosis, but in a clear conversation, with objective testing when the pattern calls for it. There is also something important to say about shame. Sleep apnea is often tangled in people's minds with body size, age, snoring, machines, masks, and embarrassment. And those associations can make someone delay asking for help. But the airway is not a moral issue. It is anatomy, it is muscle tone, it is tissue, it is jaw shape, tongue position, neck structure, hormone changes, body composition, alcohol sensitivity, sleep position, nasal airflow, and the way all of those things meet the natural relaxation of sleep. For some people, weight is part of the story. For others, it is not the whole story at all. People with many different body types can have sleep apnea. Older adults may face changing tissue tone, changing sleep structure, changing weight distribution, and other medical conditions that make the airway more vulnerable. Men are diagnosed more often, but women can have sleep apnea too, and their symptoms may not always look like the classic picture. Fatigue, insomnia, morning headache, and restless nights can sometimes be part of the pattern. The point is not to make everyone suspicious of every tired morning. The point is to remove the shame from the question. If breathing is breaking the night, the body deserves help. Not criticism, help. And help can begin with language. The way we speak about sleep apnea matters. If we speak about it only as snoring, people may dismiss it. If we speak about it only as danger, people may become afraid. If we speak about it only as weight, people may feel ashamed or unseen. If we speak about it only as a machine, people may feel reduced to equipment. But if we speak about it as a nighttime breathing pattern that can be measured, understood, and often supported, the whole subject becomes more humane. The person is not the problem. The airway is vulnerable during sleep. The body is trying to protect breath. The night is being interrupted, and care can help. That is the frame that lets people move forward. For older adults, this can be especially important. Sleep is already changing with age. Deep sleep may become lighter. Awakenings may become more common. Medical conditions and medications may complicate the picture. It becomes easy to blame every tired morning on age alone. But age can explain some changes without explaining everything. If breathing is repeatedly interrupted, that deserves attention no matter how old someone is. An older body does not need less oxygen. An older brain does not need less continuity. An older heart does not need more nighttime strain. The need for breath remains as basic as ever, and the dignity of good sleep does not expire. That is why the professional evaluation piece belongs inside the compassion, not outside it. It is not a warning label tacked onto the end. It is part of the care. If a person recognizes the pattern, they should not have to lie awake wondering, trying to diagnose themselves in the dark. The better next step is to bring the pattern into the light of morning, into a conversation, into a proper evaluation. There is a calmness in that. The night does not have to hold the whole burden. The question can wait until daylight. The body can rest now, and the person can seek answers when the sun is up. And this is where devices like CPAP, APAP, and BiPAP enter the story. not as symbols of weakness, not as punishments, not as proof that sleep has become medical and mechanical, but as ways of supporting the simplest path the night needs. An open airway, CPAP, or continuous positive airway pressure, provides a steady level of air pressure to help keep the airway open during sleep. A PAP can adjust pressure automatically within a prescribed range. BiPAP, often called BPAP in medical settings, uses two pressure levels, one for breathing in and a lower or different pressure for breathing out. For some people, that kind of support can feel more tailored to the rhythm of breathing. But the details of these devices belong with clinicians, sleep specialists, and the people who fit, adjust, and follow them over time. Tonight, we do not need settings. We do not need mask comparisons. We do not need a tutorial. The deeper point is gentler. For someone who needs one of these devices, the machine is not there to invade sleep. It is there to protect the doorway. It is there so the body does not have to keep fighting for air in the dark. It is there so the brain can stop sending rescue signals again and again. It is there so sleep has a chance to become sleep. That is a very different way to see it. Not as a loss, as support. Not as failure, as assistance for a body that has been trying hard all along. The sleeping body is not lazy when it struggles with apnea. It is busy, too busy. It is making effort against a narrowed passage. It is pulling itself upward when oxygen changes. It is restoring breathing. It is doing the emergency work again and again, quietly, while the conscious mind is gone. And when treatment helps, what changes is not only the sound of the night. The whole internal rhythm may become less interrupted. The breath can pass more steadily. The heart may be asked to respond less often. The brain may not have to keep breaking sleep to restore airflow. The morning may have a different texture. Not always immediately, not always perfectly, not in the same way for every person. But for many, the first good nights of supported breathing can feel like the body has finally stopped climbing a hill. It had been climbing for years. And that hill can be hard to describe to someone who has never climbed it, because untreated sleep apnea often becomes normal to the person living with it. Not normal in the healthy sense, normal in the familiar sense. The body adapts to waking tired. The mind adapts to fog. The afternoon crash becomes expected. The morning headache becomes something to work around. The person may begin to believe they are simply aging, simply stressed, simply not disciplined enough, simply someone who does not wake up well. But sometimes the issue is not character, it is air. Sometimes the body has been asking all night for a more open passage. This is why the first stage of treatment can feel emotional, not only because of the machine, not only because of the mask, but because a person may finally realize how long the body has been laboring in the dark. There can be grief in that, and relief, and annoyance, and gratitude, all at once. The first night with a PAP device is not always magical. For some, it is awkward. For some, it is uncomfortable. For some, the sound, pressure, hose, mask, or awareness of the device makes sleep feel less natural at first. That does not mean the person is failing. It means the body and brain are learning a new bedtime language. At first, the support may feel like equipment. Over time, for many people, it can begin to feel like part of the room, part of the ritual, part of the way the night becomes safer. CPAP gives one steady pressure. A PAP adjusts within a prescribed range. BiPAP, or BPAP, gives one pressure for inhale and another for exhale, which can be important for certain people and certain breathing needs. But beneath the device names is the same core idea. The airway needs help staying open. The body needs breath to move without so much struggle. The brain needs fewer reasons to interrupt sleep. That is the simple story under the technology. Air pressure can become a kind of nighttime architecture, not medicine in the usual sense, not a pill moving through the blood, more like a gentle support beam for the airway, holding open the passage so the sleeping body can stop bracing against collapse. There is something quietly beautiful about that when you see it clearly. The machine is not doing the sleeping. The body is still doing the sleeping. The machine is not doing the healing. The body is still doing the healing. The machine is not replacing the breath. It is supporting the path breath takes. And when that path stays open, the deeper systems have a better chance to do what they were waiting to do. This is why follow-up is not a small detail. A person may need help finding the right mask. They may need humidity adjusted. They may need leak issues solved. They may need encouragement through the awkward first weeks. They may need a clinician to look at treatment data and ask whether the therapy is actually controlling events and whether the person is actually feeling better. That is care. Not just a device, care, and it matters because sleep apnea is not only a nighttime inconvenience, it is a condition living at the intersection of sleep, breathing, cardiovascular strain, metabolism, daytime alertness, and quality of life. It deserves to be followed, it deserves to be taken seriously. But again, seriousness does not require fear, it requires steadiness. The same steadiness the breath is asking for. Still, the path is not always simple. Masks can feel unfamiliar. Pressure can feel strange. Dryness, leaks, fit problems, anxiety, noise, and frustration can happen. And this is another reason follow-up matters. A breathing device is not merely handed to a person like a finished answer. It often has to be fitted, adjusted, supported, and made livable. The best treatment in theory is not helpful if a person cannot actually sleep with it. So the story of sleep apnea is not only diagnosis, it is adaptation, it is patience, it is learning that the night can be supported, it is letting the body receive help without shame. There are also people for whom oral appliances, positional therapy, lifestyle changes, or other treatments may be part of the plan. Some may be advised to reduce alcohol because alcohol can relax the muscles of the throat and make the airway more collapsible. Some may be advised to sleep on the side. Some may be guided toward weight change, smoking cessation, physical activity, or treatment of nasal obstruction or related conditions. But again, the important word is guided. Sleep apnea is not a place for guessing alone. The airway is too important. The night is too important. And the body deserves more than a pile of internet tips. It deserves a clear look, a measured night, a plan that fits the actual pattern. And that word, pattern, matters. Because sleep apnea is rarely about one dramatic moment. It is usually about repetition. The same small crisis, returning again and again beneath the surface of sleep. A single pause in breathing would be one thing. A single arousal would be one interruption. But the body is not only responding to one event. It may be responding to a rhythm that has quietly replaced the rhythm sleep was supposed to have. Instead of long arcs of stable rest, there are repeated breaks. Instead of a smooth descent, there are small climbs. Instead of one continuous night, there may be a night made of fragments. And the body feels fragmentation, even when the mind does not remember it. This is why sleep apnea belongs so naturally beside the subject of deep sleep. Deep sleep is not just a stage on a chart. It is a state the body enters when the brain is allowed to slow, when the nervous system can settle, when repair signals can become more organized, and when the night has enough continuity to hold the sleeper in depth. But if the brain keeps being called upward to restore breathing, deep sleep may become harder to sustain. Not because the body does not want it, but because breath keeps asking for rescue. Picture a person trying to settle into a quiet room. The lights are dim. The chair is comfortable. The body begins to relax. Then a small alarm sounds. They respond. They sit back down. They begin to relax again. Then the alarm sounds again. After enough interruptions, the room may still be quiet in between the alarms, but the body never fully trusts the quiet. Sleep apnea can do something like this to the night. The body is not awake in the ordinary sense, but it is being summoned. It is being asked to respond. And repeated response has a cost. That cost may show up as daytime sleepiness, but not always. Some people with sleep apnea are overwhelmingly sleepy. Others describe fatigue more than sleepiness. Some feel wired and tired. Some wake often. Some think they have insomnia. Some do not feel particularly sleepy, but notice blood pressure issues, morning headaches, irritability, or a loss of mental sharpness. This variety is one reason sleep apnea can be missed. People expect one obvious picture: loud snoring, large body, falling asleep everywhere, and yes, that picture exists. But it is not the only one. The body does not always present its distress in a neat, textbook way. A person may wake with anxiety because the body has been pulled upward again and again. A person may wake to urinate because the pressure and hormonal changes of repeated breathing events can be tangled with nighttime fluid signaling. A person may wake with a dry mouth because they have been breathing through the mouth around obstruction or pressure changes. A person may wake with a headache because the night did not provide the smooth oxygen and carbon dioxide rhythm the brain expected. And again, each of these can have other causes. That is why they are clues, not conclusions. But clues are still valuable. They are the way the body whispers before it has to shout. And in sleep apnea, some of the most important clues may come from someone else. Because the sleeper is not a good witness. The sleeper is inside the event. The partner, the family member, or the person nearby may hear the silence after a snore. They may hear the gasp. They may notice that breathing seems to stop and then start again. They may see the body shift, jerk, or suddenly pull in air. That can be unsettling to witness, but it can also be a gift, because what is witnessed can be named, and what is named can be brought into care. This is why home sleep tests and in-lab sleep studies matter. They do not simply ask, "Did you feel tired?" They measure aspects of breathing, oxygen, effort, and sleep-related events. An in-lab study can capture more detail, including brainwave sleep stages and arousals. A home test can be useful for some uncomplicated adults when ordered and interpreted properly. But if a home test is negative or unclear and suspicion remains, a fuller study may still be needed. That is not a flaw in the process. It is a reminder that sleep is complex. The night has to be listened to carefully. And when clinicians measure sleep apnea, they are not only counting pauses. They are trying to understand how often breathing is disturbed, how deeply oxygen is affected, how the body responds, what symptoms the person has, and what other medical conditions might change the safest path forward. There is a quiet dignity in that. The hidden night becomes visible. The invisible struggle becomes data. The data becomes a conversation, and the conversation can become care. For someone who has lived with sleep apnea, this can be deeply personal, because once you know what was happening, the past may make more sense. The exhaustion, the morning heaviness, the partner's worry, the strange feeling of sleeping without being restored, the naps that felt less like luxury and more like survival, the fog that made you wonder why you could not simply wake up clear like other people seem to. Understanding does not erase those years, but it can soften the self-blame. It can say, your body was not betraying you. It was protecting you. It kept choosing breath. It kept reopening the passage. It kept bringing you back. And maybe now, with the right help, it does not have to work quite so hard. That is the emotional center of this episode. Sleep apnea is serious enough to respect, but understandable enough not to fear. It is a condition where the body's protective systems become part of the problem, not because they are wrong, but because they are forced to intervene too often. The arousal is a rescue. The rescue breaks the sleep. The broken sleep changes the day. And the day sends its own signals back into the night. Fatigue can change movement. Brain fog can change choices. Poor sleep can affect appetite, blood pressure, mood, and energy. Everything begins to feel like a loop, but loops can be interrupted, not always quickly, not always in one appointment, but with attention, with testing, with treatment that fits, with follow-up, with a refusal to treat breathing at night as a small thing. Because breath is not small. Breath is the quiet foundation under everything else the body wants to do while you sleep. Deep sleep needs breath. Dream sleep needs breath. The heart needs breath. The brain needs breath. The small repair systems, the hormonal rhythms, the immune conversations, the memory work, the morning clarity, all of them are built on the assumption that air will keep arriving. And when air keeps being interrupted, the whole night has to keep making adjustments. So if you are listening tonight and this subject feels close to home, let the closeness be calm. Let it be information. Let it be permission to take the question seriously without turning it into fear. If you use a CPAP, APAP, or BiPAP machine, maybe tonight you can see it a little differently. Not as the thing that makes you different, not as the object that proves something is wrong with you, but as a small stream of support at the edge of sleep. A steady presence helping the airway remain open, a quiet companion to the breath. Something that lets the body stop guarding the doorway all night by itself. And if you do not use one but you have wondered about your sleep, this is not a diagnosis. It is a reason to notice patterns, to listen if someone says they have heard pauses, to pay attention if loud snoring comes with gasping, choking, morning headaches, dry mouth, high blood pressure, or persistent daytime sleepiness. To bring the question into daylight, where it can be evaluated with care. The night is not the place to solve it alone. The night is the place to rest. So for now, we can let the science become gentler. We can return to the image of the airway as a passage, a living passage, soft, responsive, needing support in some bodies, needing room, needing enough tone, enough openness, enough steadiness for breath to move through. When that passage narrows, the body climbs upward. When it opens, the body can sink again. And when it stays open, breath becomes background again. That is what the body wanted all along. Not drama, not effort, not rescue, just breath in the background. Breath steady enough to be forgotten. The most beautiful breathing in sleep is often the breathing no one has to think about. No one has to notice. No one has to rescue. Air enters. Air leaves. The chest rises. The chest softens. The throat remains open enough. The brain does not need to interrupt the dream. The heart does not need another jolt of response. The body can continue downward into the deeper dark. This is why, when sleep apnea is treated well, the benefit can feel larger than the machine itself. The device is visible. The mask is visible. The tube is visible. The bedside table may look different, but the real gift is invisible. It is the uninterrupted passage of air, the rescue signals that do not have to fire, the oxygen that does not dip as often, the sleep that is allowed to remain sleep. And after a while, what once felt strange may become part of the ritual. Wash the face, turn down the room, settle the bed, put the mask in place, let the pressure rise, let the breath meet support, let the night begin. For some, that ritual can even become reassuring. The sound of the machine, the gentle movement of air, the sense that the body is not alone in the work. Of course, not everyone adapts easily, and if something about treatment is uncomfortable, the answer is not to suffer silently. It is to work with the care team. Fit can change. Humidity can change. Mask style can change. Pressure comfort can be addressed. Follow-up is part of treatment, not a sign that treatment has failed. But we can leave the details there, because tonight is not a clinic. It is a quiet explanation of what may happen when breathing breaks the night. And now that the explanation has done its work, the rest can soften. The body, even in apnea, is trying to protect life. Every arousal is the brain saying breathe. Every gasp is the body reaching for air. Every return to sleep is the system trying again. There is something tender in that, something loyal. The body does not abandon the breath. It keeps watch. But sleep was not meant to be guarded so fiercely, night after night. Sleep was meant to become a place where the guard could lower his shoulders, where the breath could move without alarm, where the airway could stay open enough for the rest of the body to turn toward repair. So if sleep apnea is part of your story or part of the story of someone you love, the invitation is not fear. It is respect. Respect for breath, respect for the signs, respect for testing, respect for treatment, respect for the courage it can take to sleep with a machine, or to ask the first question, or to admit that being tired all the time is not something you should have to simply accept. There is no shame in needing support while you sleep. None. The body has always needed support. A pillow supports the neck. A mattress supports the spine. A dark room supports melatonin. A steady routine supports the clock. And, for some people, air pressure supports the airway. It is all part of helping the night do what it was made to do. Now, let the image become simpler. A dark room, a resting body, a quiet passage of air. No struggle, no repeated climb upward, no hidden alarm, just the small, steady movement of breath. In, out, in, out. The body does not need applause for this. It does not need attention. It only needs the passage to remain open. And when it does, sleep can deepen without being pulled back. The mind can drift without being summoned. The heart can settle into its quieter rhythm. The muscles can soften. The morning can wait. There may still be ordinary movements in the night. There may still be dreams. There may still be the small shifts and turns of a living sleeper. But beneath them, breath can become steady enough that the body trusts it again. And trust is a powerful thing in sleep. The body trusts the bed. The eyes trust the dark. The mind trusts that it can let go of the day. The lungs trust that air will arrive. The blood trusts that oxygen will be carried. The brain trusts that it does not need to keep calling the sleeper upward. And with each layer of trust, the night becomes less like work, less like rescue, less like climbing, more like descent, more like rest, more like the body returning to the quiet design of sleep. You do not need to force that image. You can simply let it be nearby. A passage opening, breath moving, the body settling. The deep systems keeping watch but not needing to sound the alarm. And somewhere beneath awareness, the night grows wider. The next breath arrives, then the next, then the next. Each one small, each one ordinary, each one carrying the whole body a little farther into rest. No hurry, no striving, no need to solve anything in the dark. Only the quiet understanding that breath matters, that sleep matters, that a broken night can sometimes be understood, and that the body, given the right support, may not have to fight so hard to receive what it was always asking for. Air, quiet, rest. The room remains dark, the body remains held, and breath, when it can move freely, becomes almost invisible again, the way it was meant to be. Soft in the background, steady beneath the dreaming mind, carrying the night, carrying the body, carrying you gently farther down.